Hello everyone. This is your instructor for the Information Assurance and Security 1. Okay? So, mag-continue ra gyapon kita sa ato topics which is katong fundamentals sa information assurance and security. And now, CIA. So, what is CIA? So, CIA is the what we call the triad, no, or it's actually a foundation sa security, consists of three elements. So katong elements na confidentiality, no, so confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Okay, so confidentiality is the principle of allowing only authorized people where applications, and also known as people, no, people in applications or uh, anything that's trying to access an information resource known as the subject, no. So confidentiality is the uh, principle of allowing only, so katong mga authorized na subjects like to view sensitive data, and para katong mo access na mga critical na mga systems. So okay, and then the second one is integrity, so maintaining the accuracy and trustworthiness of data. Okay, so it's about maintaining the accuracy and trustworthiness, no, sa data. So want to make sure that people um, can't get in and do things in the data that they are not um, supposed to be doing, no. So dapat dili nila pwede buhaton. And one of the principles here is the user should only be, or the user kuan na siya, dapat human user siya. So should only be able to access data through an application interface, no? So the only people that should have direct access to any database should be your database admin, no. So dapat katong mga authorized ra na mga person. So for example, kinsay na-assign dito ng mga person, so katong sad na mga person ang maka-access. So finally, availability, ensuring data is available when it needed for business operation. So part of security class is by ensuring that data is available siya kung and where is it is needed. Okay, so one of the things that we doing which with creating security programs which include policies, procedures, and standards, and lastly the guidelines. Okay, so it is to create business continuing plan is a disaster recovery plan. So as you can see by the graphic in the lower right corner, no, mao ni siya dire. Tama to. So mao na siya dire. Sa ubos katong naay triangle sa ubos, naay blue ang color sa nan, yellow sad. Okay, so all of this, the confidentiality, the ability, and the integrity, protecting all of these things, so is done at a level to manage risk So in essence, security management is risk management. So next we have the triple A, no? Triple A, so authentication, authorization, and accountability. So authentication is the process of verifying, okay? So verifying the identity of a subject. So in other words, we want we want to prove or uh, that the subject has to prove us to us that is it is who they say they are, no? So like for example, a user will authenticate by entering a user ID and a password. Okay, so by using a certificate, an application might uh, para ma-authenticate by using the certificate, no? Again, and regardless sa giunsa niya pag trabaho, no? So no subject should have access to an information resource which we call an object, no, unless it can be verified its identity. So now once the identity is verified, we move to authorization. So authorization determines what a subject can access within that sub within the sub an object. So so there's two types of authorization. Authorization course and find of course authorization. An uh, example of that would be having access to the example, let's say payroll system, no? The find authorization is that if is what we call what you can do once you get it into the payroll application. So and accountability, mag-record siya kung a subject does not does where it doesn't. So kung mo go siya or pwede or dili so that we can always go back and have an pwede kang mag-audit, natin gitawag na audit trail, no, about what's going on with the data and the system. So again, the security is about the risk. So what you can see here are two different approach to risk formula. Okay, and then the first one is pretty standard. So risk equals probability of occurrence times business impact. So mitigated by controls. Probability of occurrence consists of threats, no, sa paman, and vulnerabilities. So in other words, actually it's threats times vulnerabilities, and we'll talk about those little bit in the next couple of slides. Okay, so natay kuan sa next nato na mga slides, no? So okay, so we have the evaluating risk. Okay, so in business impact is about fight. Usually we talk about business impact as being the impact on the bottom line, the financial impact on the business of a threat. So exploiting vulnerability to reach its objectives. So again, we are going to talk about that little later, no? So controls help to mitigate the risk by either reducing business impact or by reducing probability of occurrence. So the second, by the way, so this information is in the reading this week, no? So chapter 2 of enterprises security, so risk management or risk, and it covers in details risk assessment. Okay, so and how all of these components work together. The second formula is one that uh, I use mostly, no, and it breaks it down even for the reason, no. I like the second formula because the risk that system faces or business faces depends a lot on attackers on that threat. So a light like any criminal's investigation, so that um, we want to look at the attackers means motive and opportunity, no. Means is how skilled the attackers. So an unskilled attacker is you going to have a real hard time getting through a strong layered controls framework. So whereas really skilled attackers might be able to zoom right through it. So whether or not you believe a skilled attacker or a unskilled attacker will be after your resources. So something you have to decide during a risk assessment. So ang motive is why an attackers would be after your data. Uh, so they are the motive behind attackers today, usually financial or political. So financial attack, someone would be coming to get users credit cards information, no, or other payment information like banks accounts, passwords, that type of thing, no. So kana ng mga butang, they could go out and realize financial gain. So political motivation could be something like anonymous running around the or like a bunch of vigilantes, right? So punishing businesses and organizations for things they don't like. So most of the strength of a motive will be determine how hard kana sa mga attackers, no, is going to try to get your data. And opportunity is really the vulnerabilities, no. So if an attackers has the means and motive, the usa may mga weaknesses are they going to find. Okay, so tanawon gyud nila unsay mga weaknesses so sa ila target. So what opportunities are they going to find in your network and systems to be able to achieve their objectives. So the probability of occurrence. So the probability of occurrence is that the probability that threat will be sama will be exploit, no, exploit a vulnerability to achieve a desired kung sa mga gusto nila na objective. So a threat is something that or someone that can or seek to damage the or otherwise make an available your data. So dapat tanawon nimo kanang imo data dili man siya available. So something na dili mao ang or dili normal na ang nahitabo. So vulnerability is weakness man. So weakness, it can be lack of a patch, or it can be weak access controls like weak password, no? Yung password kita kay ato name tapos 123. So yeah, name na apelyido, okay? So an example of a threat, so exploiting a vulnerability, is a cyber criminal. So wanting to steal customer data. No? So that's a threat. So, and the use of weak password and insecure firewall configurations are vulnerabilities. So it's important to note that as we going through the rest of the lecture, no, and through this class, you have to understand the difference between threats and vulnerabilities. Okay, so sa may mga differences nila. So threats are something that are weaknesses that allow the threats to get to your resources. So we can't do a lot about threats, no? Um, but our main job is to mitigate uh, vulnerability, to eliminate them, or to make them less hospitable sa mga attackers, or para ma-detect na to ang attackers as they are moving in through our network. So padung pa lang sila ma-detect na nato sila, okay, na mo-attack na sila, or going to, or about to attack. So if you have a business sa diri sa Agusan, no? So I am going to be more worried about kaya na may, I know, so dili kong Agusan, syempre mga Cebu or Manila. Actually dili sa Philippines daghan na po yung mga hackers, no, or attackers, like sa websites, no, daghan kayo dito, sa labi na sa mga e-commerce sites. So again, we control those threats are beyond our usually be locked beyond our control. And when we're doing a risk assessment, we pair vulnerabilities with threats. So for an example, more detailed threat other than cybercrime, or a cybercriminal would be a cybercriminal coming through remote access to compromise a web server, so that para kuha nila ang or masuyod nila ang server, the web server access to kanang mga back-end sa inyong mga server or system na mga application sa non-data. So once we know that that is the threat, so then we go through and we follow what's called an attack tree. So again, that's in the reading this week, okay? So an attack tree allows us to trace through the path that an attackers would have to use to achieve those objectives. So every vulnerability we find then get listed along with this threat, okay? So what we have to do is to prevent, no? And then dili na sad kun prevent natay mga, for example, natay isa ka system, dapat mo kuha pud kag security consultant para sa imong system. So dili man manggod nimo matanaw sa problema sa imong gibuhat. So dapat na kay mga third parties na mo tan-aw gyud, or to evaluate sa mga vulnerability sa imong system. So every vulnerability we find then get listed along with this threat, no? So or sa pa na. So vulnerability examples include operating system patches out of date. So dapat it is important sad na mag-update kita ng ato mga applications labi na sa ato OS or operating system. So ang uban man gud kay mag-pirate naman ng mga OS, no? Search ra na sa product key, na mga gamiton na sad na mga tools para ma-activate ang OS. So na siya ay downside po na, okay? So mas dali siya ma-hack or masudlan ng mga viruses. So example, no? One of the example is out of date. So katong malware software, so not regularly updated. So if na kay antivirus, if dili nimo ma-update sad, so useless ra sad gyapon kay ang labi na kay may ka connected ka always sa internet. Kay if ang imong antivirus is dili siya updated, na kay ang mga viruses is mag-update man na sila pero may kada most likely kada adlaw, so maabsan ang imo antivirus, so affected gyapon imong computer. Okay, so ang protection sa imong computer is less na. So employees not receiving security training, which is a big topic that we will covering in this class. And data on mobile devices are not encrypted. So let's take a closer look to a business impact. So business impact is the damage incurred by the business if a specific threat uses an existing vulnerability to complete its objective. So there are two ways to measure business impact, no? So we have the quantity, no? So quantity is based on actual calculated costs, but it's very difficult and time consuming sad, no, at the same time, and often impossible. So impossible na gud siya, no? A business has to know that each process, what the absence or the breakdown of each process would cost the business. So over a period of time, most businesses man good is don't have that information, no? And the ones that do have, no, that is not it's swag, or it's not really that accurate sad. What I prefer, no, what I prefer to use is uh, qualitative assessment. So and usually those are the most common na gamiton. So it's based on the mga industry. So what's going on, what the types of attacks that have occurred, no? The types of problems that the business has had, the kinds of cost that the business has occurred when attack has happened. So it's based on the experience of the security personnel, for example. So sa mga network engineers, developers nato, so etc. And also you can bring in third party expert, no, like for same ra gay na sa kuha kag mga consultant yun, kay makatabang man na sila. So para makatabang ka or sila, to establish what business impact would be if they serve threat was able to reach resource. And one of the things that very important, no, so to understand is that before we get into actual controls, we can put controls and all day, no? Pero dili kita makaguarantee gihapon 100% that the attack will not be successful. So kay dagay may mahitabuan na that na sitwasyon. So we just can't do it. We can provide 100% security to a network. We must assume that attackers will eventually get in. So one of the things we have to do to mitigate business impact is to have really good detection and response control. We have to detect an attackers as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, as far away from their target as we can, no? So para gyud di mas ma-avoid gyud nimo ang pagsulod sa mga or pag-damage sa imo system. And we need to be able to respond quickly to stop the attackers and potential identify that person or entity, and hopefully be able to report them to enforcement. So report mo sa mga NBI or CIDG o police o kinsa man toy dali nimo ma-contact na mga imo matawagan. And then katong someone, so that further action can be taken to the or to try to eliminate that threat altogether. Okay, so controls, ayan, I see ko na ako mouse. Okay, controls. So security controls are set of layer technical. So layer technical, administrative, and physical devices, no? Policies and other methods used to prevent a threat from achieving its objective, or to detect a threat and response effectively. So as you notice, no, here that we have not just, and we're going to talk about this in a seconds or a minute. So we not only have preventive controls, no? So we also have detection and response control. So mas nindot na siya kay bisan unsa nga action ng himuon sa attackers na kay ma-eliminate good ni ma-eliminate nimo sila, no? Dako ang percentage good dili ma damage ang system. So each technical control should be supported by prevention, detection, and response capabilities, either within itself or from other controls. So technical controls, example for the network, we have unsa man kung sa network dapat natay mga firewalls, no? Intrusion prevention, detection, and log management, no? Importante po ng log management kay kung kinsa to'y naka kinsay user ato, okay? Kung kinsay naka-login, no? Kinsay nag-transact. We're going to talk about this in the class. So endpoint, may endpoint. So endpoint technical controls, these are free in your, free your computers. So your servers have let's say anti-malware, no? Host-based firewalls and strong access controls. So and administrative controls include policy, which is a big part sa imong learning team project. And these class policies occur at three levels. So and it's very important man good to understand the three levels that where policies are applied: issue, systems, and enterprises. Issue policies are about specific things or a specific behavior of employees, guests, vendors, and etc. So uh, you can use the email for this, but you can use it for that. So or this is how you have to dispose of media like hard drive, hard drives, and hard disk, no? Okay, so in administrative controls include policy, which is a big part of your learning team project. Okay, and then ay balik na data na sa ba to? Okay, so in system policies are about to specific system. So and we talk about systems in this class. We're going to be talking about all of the devices and software that enable to a business process. So again, that's all the hardware and the software that enables business or process. Syempre naman tayo mga computers gamiton, mga devices like routers, switches, modem. Okay, so for example, an accounts payable systems, no, it requires a server, an application server, a database server, which those service the two servers, no. A small and a medium sized company can be the same server endpoint devices. Saan naman to? Okay, so uh, okay, so company can be the same server sa mga endpoint devices, network devices like again routers, switches, and also end user computers, so that the data can be accessed and processed, uh, all of those things together in a system, so that uh, it would be the accounts payable system. And at the enterprise level, enterprise policies are written to cover topics that go across all systems and issues. At the highest level policy, enterprise policy is a general statement in or of intent by the business, so that they will work to secure sensitive data, and they expect the employees to do as we do as well, no, as standards and guidelines support policies, and standard are things na you must do. Guidelines are recommended practices, no. So unsay reason nga kita naatay mga katong duha ka butang. So no, it's because standards take away flexibility, no? But if we can put a recommendation man sad into our documentation and support policies to say, look, these are the way we think is the best way get their to get their allows to allow engineers to design solution that reach the intended outcomes of the guidelines without actually following the specific guidelines. So we made the guidelines. We may say that integrated IPs o katong mga IP address, well, so it may be better based on the traffic that we need firewall and discrete IPs, or para i-separate nato mga IPs behind the firewall. So para sa mga performance reason, we had standard and said that all tanan firewall must be IP based, must be within the firewall. Then every time an engineer, no, gusto niya na ma-fix performance issues because of an overload of on the device, they have to go and get an permission, no, for an exception. So procedures are step-by-step instructions on how to do something na ilabuhaton. So what procedures do is help to para matabangan kita consistently para ma-meet ang standards and guidelines to para consistently be policy compliance at the same time. So if our engineers are doing the same thing the same way every time, we know that we're going to get consistent outcomes. Now that does not mean that the outcomes are perfect. It give us enough control, no, to know that if our outcomes are not where we are uh, where they should be. So all we have to do is make a minor adjustment to process we can identify in the procedure where the problem might lie, no. So if everybody go doing their own thing, so simple changes to procedures simple changes to a single um, procedure that would solve, no, para ma-solve tanan mga problems na dili siya imposible. So procedures are syempre importante mo sa lang procedure manggod, no, kay it's a proper way para ma-achieve nimo ang success na imo buhaton. Okay, kung sa imo desire sad na gusto mahitabo. So these support standard and guidelines and help us consistently achieve policies outcomes, no. So another thing to notice about policies are our high our high standards, no. So our high level statements in or of intent, okay, they do not specify how arrive at our outcomes. So they just specify what outcomes management expects. So standards and guidelines get closer to how we will achieve those outcomes. So but kuan man gud in our network design and SDLC process, when we get into the design phase, no, natata sa design na phase, that's where we actually decide how we're going to do, or what actual hardware, software, etc. Okay, we're going to be using achieve policy outcomes. So it's very important to understand, because we spend a lot of time on SDLC. Um, and then training and sanction, no? Training and sanction policies are no good unless um, employees are well trained. Okay, and if employees know that nothing will ever have to happen sa ila, pero if they don't to follow the procedures, they don't conform to policy and comply with the policy. So that's many employees will simply do what they want. So sanctions are things that the company can do to an employee, no? Syempre kay na may sala. So kanang mga nasayop, no? Nasayop or wala nag-follow instruction, or katong mga mag-follow ng mga policy, or fails to follow mandated procedures. So it can be a letter of reprimand or termination na gyud, or something else that sa HR has its disciplinary policies. And finally, we have business continuity plans, no? Business continuity plan. Okay, so a business plan helps to mitigate business impact by recovering from an attacks as quickly as possible and returning processes to normal operation. So physical controls slow down and attackers. The purpose of physical of layered, no? So physical controls is to kato lagi ito slow attackers on to hinder their advance from the perimeter of the property to their target. So long enough so that they can be detected and human response can be affected. So we do this with fences, locks, environmental controls. Environmental controls are made are more for making sure that we can have more of availability control, that they are for an attack prevention control. So last is security guards again. Fire sa mga security guards kibali. So fire control systems are not part of environmental controls. And then we have hot and warm and cold sites, no? Hot sites is we is where you have your system you it's like calculation, no? You have two data centers, and you have your primary data center, and you have a secondary data center. So katong secondary data center has all of the data, so it's up and running. If you lose your primary, you have immediately switch over the secondary or hot site. So na kay mga backup na mga system or sites. And don't you process chunky business, no? Processes never post warm sites a little bit different. So you might have all your hardware up and running, but you may have the update the data with my restoring backups or more through database journals. So cold sites are places where you have a contract. So and you go in when you need them, and they have allocate your servers based on your contract. So you have to build them uh, all from the ground up, no? Okay, so